You are about to leave the world you know, and enter one made of wonder. A world of gentle footsteps, soft magic, and stories older than time. This is Narnia. But not as a tale rushed through or read aloud. No battles here. No loud voices. Only stillness. Only peace. Only you, walking the path, step by step, as the land quietly opens itself to you. Whether you're watching to sleep, to rest, or to dream, I'm so glad you're here. And if you're comfortable, I invite you to do two small things. Like this video to let Narnia know you arrived safely. Leave a comment with the time you're watching, whether it's 9 p.m., 2 a.m., or sunrise at 5:47, so others can see they're not wandering alone. Now close your eyes, if you'd like. Or let them rest on the screen as the forest draws near. You're standing just outside the wardrobe. The snow is falling softly. And the lamp is already glowing. Let's begin. I opened my eyes and the world was quiet. There was no noise. Only the soft sound of falling snow. It touched my face. Cold and light. I sat up slowly. My hands pressed into the snow. It felt fresh. Clean. Untouched. Above me, a warm yellow light glowed. I looked up and saw the lamp post. Tall. Still. Its light did not flicker. It shone down like a small star. I stared at it for a long time. I did not know where I was. I did not remember stepping through a door. But I felt no fear. Only wonder. All around me were trees. Thin and bare. Their branches held snow like quiet hands. The sky above them was silver and pale. Not day. Not night. Somewhere in between. My breath came out in soft clouds. The air smelled like pine and ice. I stood up. My boots sank into the snow. I turned in a circle. Everything looked the same. White and soft. Trees in every direction. And the lamppost standing behind me like a lone guardian. I felt something in my chest. Like the world was holding its breath. Then I heard a sound. It was gentle. The crunch of footsteps in snow. Not fast. Not heavy. I turned. From between the trees, a figure came. Half man. Half goat. His legs were like a deer's. Covered in fur. Hooves instead of feet. But from the waist up, he looked like a man. A soft scarf around his neck. A package under one arm. And two small horns on his head. He stopped when he saw me. His eyes were wide. He blinked. "Oh," he said. "Goodness me." I said nothing. I was still. So was he. "You're human," he said. I nodded. He stepped forward. Slowly. "You're not supposed to be here," he said. Then he smiled. It was a small smile. Gentle and kind. But then again, things do not always happen the way they should. I nodded again. I felt warm even though the snow fell. "My name is Tumnus," he said. "I am a faun." I told him my name. My voice sounded small in the snow. "Well," he said, "you look cold. And I have tea on the stove. Would you like to come with me?" I paused. I looked back at the lamp post. It stood still. Silent. I looked at Tumnus again. He waited. His breath rose in clouds. His eyes were soft. "Yes," I said. "Come then," he said. He turned and walked ahead. I followed. We walked through the snow. The trees grew closer together. Our footsteps were the only sound. Snowflakes fell on my coat and melted on my cheeks. The light from the lamppost grew smaller behind me. I did not look back again. Soon we came to a hill. At the base was a round door. Tumnus opened it and light spilled out. Warm and golden. He stepped aside to let me in. Inside was small and cozy. A fire burned in a hearth. A kettle hissed on the stove. There were books stacked in piles. A soft chair. A rug that looked like it had been there forever. I stepped inside. My boots left wet marks on the floor. But Tumnus did not mind. "Sit," he said. "Please. Make yourself warm." I sat near the fire. I took off my gloves. The heat wrapped around my hands like a blanket. Tumnus poured tea. He gave me a cup with both hands. "It is always winter now," he said. "So we make tea often." I sipped it. It was sweet. With honey and milk. I could taste something like cinnamon. I let the warmth spread through me. I looked around the room. There were pictures on the wall. A map. A flute on a shelf. "Is this your home?" I asked. "Yes," he said. "My family lived here before me. And their family before them." "It's nice," I said. He nodded. "I like quiet places." We sat for a while. The fire popped now and then. The snow tapped at the window. "You are the first human I have seen in a long time," he said. "Have others come before me?" I asked. "Oh yes," he said. "There was a girl. Long ago. Her name was Lucy." He looked into the fire. His eyes were far away. "She was brave," he said. "And kind. She came through the same way you did. Through the wardrobe. She found this place. And she found me." He smiled again. It was a soft smile. We had tea. Just like this. And I told her about the world. "Can you tell me too?" I asked. He nodded. "Of course." He leaned back. His hooves crossed in front of the fire. "This is Narnia," he said. "It is a land of magic. Of old kings and deep forests. Of rivers that talk. And trees that dance." I listened. "Once, there was a great winter," he said. "It lasted for 100 years. The White Witch made it so. No Christmas. No spring. Just snow. Just cold." He paused. "But then for children came. From your world. Lucy. Edmund. Susan. Peter. They came to Narnia. They helped the lion return." "The lion?" I asked. "Yes," he said. "Aslan. The great lion. He is not tame. But he is good." Tumnus grew quiet. The fire burned low. I felt sleepy. The tea warmed my hands. The room felt like a dream. Tumnus stood. He placed a blanket over my shoulders. "You may rest here," he said. "It is safe." I closed my eyes. The fire cracked. Snow brushed the windows. Somewhere far off, an owl called once. I slept. When I woke, the fire was still glowing. The light was low. It flickered softly on the stone walls. Tumnus was not in the room. But I heard him in the kitchen. The clink of a cup. The soft sound of water being poured. The quiet life of someone who moves through the world with care. I sat up slowly. The blanket slid off my shoulders. My body felt warm. My mind felt light. Tumnus came back in. He smiled. You slept well, he said. I nodded. Very well. He handed me another cup. This one smelled of apples and mint. The steam rose and curled in the air. There is something about this place, I said. It feels like a story. He laughed. It is, he said. Everything in Narnia is a story. Even the stones. Even the trees. I sipped the tea. It was soft on my tongue. Sweet and cool at the same time. Tumnus sat across from me. He rested his chin on his hand. His eyes were old and kind. Would you like to hear one? He asked. I nodded. Please. He looked into the fire. The flames danced in his eyes. A long time ago, he said, before the witch, before the thrones, even before the lamppost was lit, Narnia was born. Born? I asked. Yes, he said. It came into being. Just like that. With song. With song. He nodded. Aslan sang it into life. The stars. The mountains. The rivers. Even us. All made by song. I tried to picture it. A lion, golden and wild, standing in nothing. His mouth open. Music pouring out. And from that music, the world rising. Light. Sky. Snow. Leaf. Breath. Tumnus saw my face and smiled. It is hard to imagine. But it is true. I leaned closer to the fire. The room felt smaller now. Like the story had pulled it in. He continued. The witch was not part of that song, he said. She came from another world. She brought cold and fear. He stirred the fire with a small iron poker. Sparks lifted like fireflies. During her reign, he said, everything stopped growing. Everything froze. Even time felt slower. I looked at the walls. I imagined the room under thick ice. The fire gone. Tumnus alone in the cold. But then the lion returned, he said. And with him, spring. He paused. But the lion did not just bring warmth. He brought sacrifice. I felt the air grow still. Tumnus placed the poker back on the hearth. He gave his life to save another. A boy who had done wrong. He looked at me. His voice was soft. And because he gave everything, the deep magic broke. Death itself began to work backward. I did not speak. The fire whispered. Tumnus stood. He walked to a shelf and took down a book. Its cover was worn. Its pages yellow. This is one of our oldest tales, he said. He opened it and showed me a picture. A lion on a stone table. Moonlight above him. Shadows around him. This is the stone table, he said. A place of law. And power. And change. I ran my hand over the page. The paper was smooth and cool. He closed the book. You will see it, he said. If you stay on your path. I want to see everything, I said. He smiled. Then you must keep going. We sat in silence for a while. The fire grew lower. The sky outside the window turned from silver to a pale blue. I must go, I said. He nodded. I know. He stood and helped me with my coat. He handed me a small pouch. For the road, he said. I looked inside. A bit of bread. A small wrapped cheese. A folded cloth. Thank you, I said. He placed a hand on my shoulder. Follow the river, he said. It will take you to Caer Paravel. What will I find there? I asked. Memories, he said. And echoes. I stepped outside. The snow had stopped. The world was quiet again. But the silence was full of meaning. Tumnus stood in the doorway. He lifted one hand. I did the same. Then I turned and walked. The snow crunched under my feet. The trees watched. The path curved gently downhill. I followed it without thought. Far behind me, the hollow was still warm. Still full of firelight and stories. But ahead, the forest waited. And beyond that, a castle by the sea. The journey had begun. The path bent with the shape of the land. I followed it. My boots left light prints in the snow. The trees grew taller as I walked. Their trunks were wide and old. Their bark was rough and dark. Their branches reached over the path and touched each other, like fingers linking in the sky. The light changed. It grew dim, but not with darkness. It was soft, like shade made from time instead of clouds. The snow underfoot turned thin. The wind stopped. The world held its breath. I slowed down. Something had changed. I could feel it in the air. Like walking into a room where someone had just spoken a secret. The trees were watching. I did not see eyes. I did not see faces. But I knew. They were awake. Not just alive. Awake. They stood like sentinels. Not moving. Not breathing. But full of memory. I stopped and placed a hand on one of the trunks. It was cool. Rough. Still. But inside I felt a hum. A low sound that was not sound. The tree remembered something. It was not a word or an image. Just a feeling. Something deep. Something old. I closed my eyes. I listened. And then I heard it. Not with my ears. But somewhere deeper. It was a song. Faint. Like wind through dry leaves. Like water slipping over stone. It had no words. But it told a story. The trees were singing. Not to me. Not for me. But around me. I was part of it now. Just for this moment. I opened my eyes. A soft glow moved through the branches. I looked up. A figure stood on one of the thicker limbs. Light wrapped around her like silk. Her skin was like the pale wood of birch. Her hair moved without wind. She stepped down onto another branch. Then another. Until she stood before me. Bare feet on snow. Her eyes were the color of river stones. "You hear them," she said. Her voice was a whisper. "I do," I said. "They remember you," she said. "Me?" I asked. "All of you," she said. "All who come. All who leave. All who forget." She walked around me once. Her feet made no sound. "Do you remember them?" she asked. "No," I said. "But I want to." She nodded. "That is enough." She stepped closer. She placed one hand over my heart. Her fingers were cold. But not unkind. "Feel," she said. I closed my eyes again. I saw light. Golden and slow. I saw hills rolling under wide skies. I saw a lion walking across water. His steps made islands. His breath made wind. I saw children running through fields. Laughing. Holding hands. Wearing crowns. I saw snowfall in spring. Not cold. Just gentle. I opened my eyes. The dryad was gone. Only trees stood around me. Still and tall. but the song was still there. Quieter now. Deep in the bark. Deep in the roots. I walked again. The forest seemed lighter. The snow sparkled. The trees no longer felt still. They moved with me. Not in body, but in spirit. I passed a fallen log. Moss grew along its back. A squirrel watched me from its branch. Its eyes were bright. It twitched its nose. "Hello," I said. It did not speak, but it stayed. That was enough. I followed the bend in the trail. The trees opened wider. I came to a clearing. A small pool lay still in its center. Ice glazed the edges, but the middle was clear. I knelt beside it. In the water, I saw the sky. Blue and wide. I saw clouds that drifted like ships. I saw my own face. But behind me, I thought I saw something else. A flicker of gold. I turned. Nothing. Only trees. I stood and kept walking. The wind returned. Soft and slow. It whispered through the leaves. Even though most were gone, a few clung to branches. They rustled like pages in an old book. I followed the sound. Up ahead, I saw a break in the trees. Light poured through like water. Warm and steady. I stepped out of the woods and saw the sea. Far below, it shimmered. Blue and silver. It stretched forever. The horizon was soft. And on the shore, a castle rose. Cair Paravel. The wind touched my face. Salt and pine. I stood still. The trees behind me stood too. Watching. Remembering. I whispered a thank you. Then I stepped forward. The path led down. The sea stayed in view. It moved slowly. A breath that never stopped. Waves rolled in and out. Soft. Gentle. Like the rhythm of thought. The castle stood on a green cliff. Its towers reached into the sky. Light from the setting sun touched the stone. It turned the walls gold. Shadows stretched long across the grass. I walked slowly. The air smelled of salt. And something sweet. Like blooming flowers after rain. Birds flew overhead. Their wings silent. The sky was orange and pink. The clouds hung low and soft. As I neared the gate, I saw no guards. No doors. Just two high arches of carved stone. Shapes were etched into them. Lions. Trees. Crowns. Stars. All worn smooth by time. I stepped through. Inside, the wind hushed. The courtyard was wide. Empty. But not dead. The stones held warmth. The walls held memory. I passed gardens that had gone wild. Vines climbed broken arches. Flowers opened toward the light. The grass was tall but soft. Paths curved gently through it. I climbed stone stairs. The castle rose above me. Not ruined. Not whole. Just quiet. I entered through an open doorway. The air inside was cooler. It smelled of dust. And water. And old wood. I walked through halls lit by the last rays of sun. Light fell in long lines across the floor. The windows were tall and arched. Some still held colored glass. Blue. Red. Gold. It painted the floor in soft shapes. I passed portraits. Faded. But still watching. For children. A lion. A great battle under a silver sky. A ship with wings for sails. I stopped before one. A girl with short hair. A dagger at her side. She smiled, but her eyes were strong. Lucy. I touched the frame. You were the first, I said. I walked on. The main hall opened wide. The throne stood at the far end. Carved from wood and stone. One taller than the rest. One slender. One broad. One small. All different. But all the same. I stood before them. The light outside began to fade. The colors on the floor slipped away. Shadows climbed the walls. I sat on the stone step below the thrones. I closed my eyes. I listened. The sea outside was near now. I could hear it in the silence. A voice in the distance. Steady. Slow. Eternal. The air grew cooler. But not cold. I opened my eyes. The room was almost dark. Then, a soft sound. Footsteps. Slow and light. I turned. A figure stood at the door. She wore a cloak. Her hair was silver. Her eyes were the color of winter sky. I remember you, she said. Me? I asked. All of you, she said. Every footstep in this hall. Every breath taken near these thrones. Were you here when they ruled? I asked. I was, she said. I watched them grow. Laugh. Lead. Then leave. She stepped closer. This place does not die, she said. It waits. It watches. Like the trees. Like the sea. I looked back at the thrones. They seem empty, I said. They are full, she said. Of names. Of voices. Of hope. She reached out and placed her hand on the stone. They never truly leave, she said. Not here. Not in Narnia. She turned and walked away. I stayed for a long time. Watching the thrones. Listening to the wind. When I finally stood, the stars were out. They shone through the broken roof. Bright and close. I left the hall. I stepped into the night. The sea glowed silver in the moonlight. The waves whispered to the shore. I found a bench by the garden wall. I sat today. I watched the stars. One fell. Then another. The sky was full of quiet light. I closed my eyes. And the castle breathed around me. Morning came slow. A soft blue light filled the sky. The stars had faded. The sea still moved. The castle behind me was quiet. The stone was cool beneath my feet. I walked back through the garden. The grass bent under dew. The flowers were closed. Sleeping. I passed through the gate. The same path curved into the hills. The snow had returned. Thin at first. Then deeper as I walked. I followed no map. Only the trail. It wound between trees and stones. It rose and fell with the land. Then I saw them. Footprints. Small ones. Not mine. They led ahead. Pressed into fresh snow. Still sharp. Not old. I bent and touched one. A paw. For toes. Claws at the tips. I looked ahead. More prints. More paws. A pattern. A path. I followed. The trail dipped through a grove of trees. Thin trunks. Bare branches. Light snow falling. The prints moved between them. Steady. Clear. Then they stopped. At a hollow tree. The trunk was split open. Inside was shadow and moss. I stepped closer. A voice spoke. "Are you lost?" I turned. A beaver stood near a fallen log. Thick fur. Small round ears. Sharp eyes. Calm and watchful. "No," I said. "Just walking." He tilted his head. "Few walk these woods without purpose." "I'm looking," I said. "For stories. For truth. For something that feels real." The beaver nodded. "You're in the right place," he said. "Everything is real here. Even the things that aren't." He walked over to the tree. "These prints," he said, "belong to a fox. Friendly. Quick. Loves riddles. Do you speak with all the animals here?" I asked. "Most," he said. "If they want to be heard." He sat on the log. I sat beside him. "My name is Beren," he said. I told him mine. He looked out into the woods. "You know," he said, "this land remembers more than people think." He drew a shape in the snow with his paw. For small marks. A circle. A sun. Are crossing it. "They lost," he said. "Badly. One of them betrayed the others. The witch had him." "What happened?" He looked at me. "The lion came," he said. "He gave himself in trade. The witch took him. Killed him. Right there. On the stone table." I said nothing. But then, Beren said, "The table cracked. And the lion came back." "Why?" I asked. "Because there was a deeper law," he said. "One the witch did not know." "What law?" I asked. He pointed to my heart. "The law of sacrifice," he said. "The law of love." The snow fell slower now. The trees were still. Even the wind had stopped. "I miss them," Beren said. "The children. Do they ever come back?" I asked. "Sometimes," he said. "But never for long." We sat in silence. Then he stood. "You should follow the stream," he said. "It runs east. Toward the table." "Will I see the lion?" I asked. He looked at me for a long time. "Not with your eyes," he said. "But maybe with something deeper." He turned and walked away. His paws left soft prints. Then he was gone. I stood. I followed the trail. The trees opened. And ahead, I heard the stream. The stream was thin and clear. It whispered over stones and roots. I walked beside it. My feet followed the soft music it made. The snow thinned. The trees grew sparse. The land opened into low hills. Gray rock poked through the white. The wind was colder here. It carried a silence that was deeper than the rest. I walked for a long time. Then I saw it. A shape on the horizon. White and sharp. Like broken teeth rising from the hill. I walked closer. It was a ruin. Stone towers leaned inward. Walls cracked open. Frost clung to every edge. The snow here did not melt. It felt older. It had weight. This was her place. The White Witch. I stepped inside the gate. There was no door. Only jagged stone. The air was still. I moved slow. The ground was smooth. No footprints. No sound. Only the faint drip of water from high above. The walls around me were tall. Crumbling. Empty. But I could feel her. Not in sight. Not in sound. In the cold. She had ruled from here. She had sat on a throne made of ice. She had made the snow never stop. I passed under a broken arch. Inside was a wide room. The ceiling had caved in. Snow had fallen and frozen again. It sparkled in the dim light. In the center stood a chair. It was cracked, but still standing. Made of pale stone. Sharp. Smooth. Her throne. I stepped toward it. I placed my hand on the armrest. It was colder than snow. Colder than air. A cold that felt like silence. Like waiting. I sat. The stone pulled the warmth from my body. My breath came out white. I closed my eyes. I saw her. A woman tall and still. Skin like marble. Eyes like glass. A crown of ice. A voice like wind over sharp rock. She did not speak. But I felt her. A hunger. A stillness. A pride that did not bend. She ruled not because she loved, but because she would not let go. I opened my eyes. The room was darker now. The sky outside had changed. I stood. Snow fell again. Thin flakes. Each one perfect. But empty. I walked through the hall. Statues lined the sides. Animals. People. All turned to stone. Eyes wide. Frozen in time. They had once lived. Then the lion came. And they lived again. I passed them. Quiet. Careful. I felt their stories in the air. At the far end of the hall was a mirror. Tall. Framed in black metal. The glass was cracked. I looked into it. I saw myself. Then I saw her. Standing behind me. Cold. Beautiful. Empty. I blinked. She was gone. Only me. Only the wind. I left the hall. I stepped back into the snow. The ruin stood behind me. Still. Silent. Waiting for no one. The stream waited ahead. I walked toward it. And the cold began to lift. The stream curved through the hills like a silver thread. I followed it until it vanished into the grass. The snow faded. The air warmed. My coat hung open. The trees grew farther apart, and soon there were none. Only wide land, golden and soft beneath the sun. The wind moved gently over the earth. It carried the scent of dry grass and far-off rain. I looked ahead. There was a path. It cut through the fields. Worn into the land. Not sharp. Not planned. Just walked again and again by something larger than memory. The path was lined with paw prints. Big ones. Broad and deep. I knelt beside one. Pressed my hand into it. My fingers barely filled the space. The print was old, but not forgotten. The shape clear. The earth had not swallowed it. It had held it. Protected it. I stood and began to follow. The wind shifted. It carried more than scent. It carried weight. Not heavy, but strong. Like music played from far away. The kind you don't hear with your ears. Only with your chest. It hummed through me. I did not know where it came from. But I knew I had to walk toward it. The grass brushed my legs. Tall. Warm. Full of insects that clicked softly. The sky was wide and blue. Clouds drifted slowly above. The sun moved gently. Never harsh. Never fast. The world here did not rush. It waited. It listened. It remembered. I walked for what felt like hours. But time had changed. I no longer cared for it. Only the path. Only the prints. Sometimes I lost them. Then found them again. Each one the same. Round. Full. Silent. Made by something that walked with care. A hill rose before me. I climbed it without thought. My legs moved slow. The air was cooler at the top. I looked out. The land rolled on forever. Forests in the distance. A river cutting through the green. The sea was gone now. Hidden behind the rise. The castle far behind. And there, at the top, the prince stopped. I stood in their place. The wind moved around me. I felt it in my hair. On my skin. In my breath. Then I heard it. A sound with no sound. A voice with no words. It filled the hilltop like light fills a room. It pressed into me gently. Firm. Not asking. Just being. I turned. No one stood behind me. But I felt him. Not near. Not far. Just present. Like the sun. Like the wind. Like the heart. The lion. I knelt without meaning to. My body moved on its own. I placed my hands on the ground. My head low. I waited. I listened. The silence grew full. Not empty. Full. I thought of the trees. The snow. The thrones. The witch. The beaver. The fawn. The broken table. The children. The songs. All of it. All in him. And he in all of it. I felt peace. Not loud. Not bright. Just quiet. Just whole. When I stood again, the prints were gone. The path was grass again. The sun began to lower. I turned. And walked on. The sun dipped behind the hills, and the sky turned soft with shadow. Purple stretched across the clouds. Orange kissed the edge of the world. I walked through the fading light. The grass under my feet felt warmer now. The breeze carried a new scent. Earth. Smoke. Something sweet and old. The path was gone. But I did not need it anymore. The land seemed to guide me. As if it knew I was coming. Ahead, I saw light. Not the sharp kind from fire or lantern. A glow. Gentle and low. Like starlight come down to rest. I moved toward it. Trees appeared. Thin and spaced like dancers on a stage. Their trunks bent slightly as if bowing. Between them, the light grew stronger. I heard sound. Music. A flute. High and smooth. It weaved through the branches like silk. I stepped into a clearing. The ground was flat. Covered in moss and soft leaves. In the center, a ring of fawns danced. Their feet barely touched the earth. Their hooves moved in time with the music. Slow and sure. No one led. No one followed. They danced in a perfect circle. Their eyes closed. Smiles on their faces. Their horns glowed faintly in the moonlight. Other creatures sat around the edge. Nymphs with hair like vines. A dwarf with a drum in his lap. A pair of talking birds perched on a log, their heads tilted in rhythm. No one spoke. The music did all the speaking. A fawn stepped from the circle and saw me. He nodded once. Then held out a hand. I hesitated. Then stepped forward. His fingers were warm. He led me into the ring. The music did not change. But the world did. As I moved with them, time slowed. My thoughts faded. I felt light. My arms followed the rhythm. My feet found the beat. The air was filled with joy, but not loud joy. Quiet joy. The kind that hums deep in the chest. We danced in silence. Only the flute played. The stars above turned slowly. A wind passed through the trees. It lifted the leaves like feathers. They swirled above our heads. Not one of us looked up. But we felt them. Then the music changed. Just a note. Just a pause. All of us stopped. The circle broke. The dancers moved to the edge. A wide space opened in the center. From the trees, a figure stepped out. She was tall and graceful. Her hair was long and white. Her dress moved like water. Her skin shimmered faintly. She carried no instrument. No staff. Only a small silver bell in her hand. She walked to the center of the circle. She raised the bell. Then let it ring once. The sound was clear. High and soft. It hung in the air. Then she spoke. Tonight, she said, we remember. No one answered. But everyone listened. We remember the thaw, she said. We remember the first spring. The first dance. The first laugh. She turned slowly. We remember the lion, she said. We remember his breath, his song, his steps. The fawns bowed their heads. We remember those who came, she said. Who stayed? Who left? Who dreamed? She lowered the bell. The sound faded. She looked at me. Do you remember? She asked. I am learning, I said. She smiled. Good, she said. That is all we ask. She raised the bell again. It rang twice. Then she vanished into the trees. The music returned. But softer now. Not to dance. To rest. To reflect. The fawn's Saturday. The fireflies returned. The birds tucked their heads beneath their wings. I sat too. The earth beneath me pulsed with life. The stars moved above. And the dance lived on in the stillness. The morning came slow and soft. Mist hung in the air. Light moved gently through it, turning silver as it touched the trees. The clearing where the fawns had danced was quiet now. The moss was smooth. The leaves still. I rose and walked without speaking. My feet knew the way, even if I did not. The forest thickened. The trees grew closer. Their trunks were wide and rough. The light dimmed as the branches stretched overhead. I walked through shadow. Birds called above me. Small voices. Simple songs. The ground was damp. Covered in roots and old leaves. The smell was rich. Like rain and bark and thyme. Then the path dipped. The trees opened slightly. And I saw it. A single tree stood in the middle of a wide hollow. Its trunk was broader than a house. Its bark was dark. Its branches reached high into the air. But its leaves were golden. Even in the dim light, they glowed. Like fire. Like memory. This was the wardrobe tree. I stepped closer. The air changed. It felt thick. Like breath held in the chest. The ground beneath the tree was smooth. No roots. No stones. Just soft earth. At the base of the trunk, a gap had opened. Not a hole. Not a door. Just a space. Like the tree had stepped aside to let something in. I knelt and looked inside. Darkness. Then light. Not bright. Just there. I crawled forward. The earth gave way to wood. The smell changed. I was inside the tree now. But it did not feel small. The space stretched wide around me. The walls curved like waves. The ceiling rose above me like a dome. I stood. And I heard singing. Voices, low and soft. Not near. Not far. They came from the walls. From the roots. From the heart of the tree. I closed my eyes. The song told a story. Of a world still waiting to be made. Of a lion walking alone in the dark. His voice the only sound. Each note brought light. Each breath brought shape. Mountains rose from silence. Rivers curled through stone. Stars blinked into the sky. Animals stirred in the grass. Trees opened their eyes. The world began. And with it, the wardrobe. A door to another world. But not just a door. A promise. That wonder would not be lost. That stories would not end. The song grew quiet. I opened my eyes. The inside of the tree glowed faintly. The golden light from the leaves above had found its way in. I sat on the floor. I listened. To the stillness. To the heartbeat of wood and earth. Then I stood and stepped back through the opening. The forest waited. The tree behind me said nothing. But I felt full. As if something old had been given. And something new had begun. The forest lightened as I walked. The trees grew younger. The air felt sweeter. The scent of fruit drifted between the branches. Bees moved lazily through the air. Their hum was soft. Slow. The sound of a place that was at peace. I stepped into an orchard. The trees stood in neat rows, though no hand had placed them. Their trunks were smooth. Their leaves full. Apples hung low, round and golden. Some had fallen. Their skins glowed in the grass. The earth here was soft beneath my feet. The sky above was clear. In the center of the orchard stood a lamp. Tall and slender. Much like the one I saw on my first day in Narnia. But this one was different. Its light was not pale or cold. It burned like memory. Warm. Golden. Constant. I walked toward it. As I drew near, I saw something at its base. A small bench. Made of white wood. Curved like a smile. I sat down and rested my hands on my lap. The lamp flickered once. Then held steady. A voice spoke. "You found it." I turned. No one stood behind me. But the voice remained. This is where she remembered. I looked back at the lamp. She was small when she came, the voice said. Brave. Curious. Full of light. "Lucy," I said. "Yes," the voice replied. She lit the way. I closed my eyes. I saw her. A little girl with clear eyes. She stepped through the wardrobe and into the snow. She walked alone, but without fear. She met the fawn. She drank his tea. She listened to his words. She believed what others did not. She was the first, the voice said. The first to believe. The first to return. The lamp grew brighter for a moment. Then calmed again. She lit more than the path, the voice said. She lit hearts. I sat in silence. The orchard rustled around me. Leaves stirred. A breeze passed through the trees. One apple dropped and rolled across the ground. She never forgot, the voice said. Not truly. Even when they said she was wrong. Even when they told her it was a dream. She held Narnia, I whispered. Yes, the voice said. She always did. The light pulsed once more. Every time someone believes, the voice said, the lamp burns a little brighter. I stood. I reached out and touched the post. It was warm. Like a hand. Like a hug. Like home. I turned back to the orchard. The trees shimmered in the sun. I took one step forward. Then another. Behind me, the lamp glowed steady. It would stay. For the next to come. For the next to believe. The path curved back into the forest. The orchard faded behind me. The light of the lamp still burned in my mind. Warm. Steady. The sky above was turning pale with afternoon. The air held the smell of moss and wood smoke. I followed the scent without thinking. My feet knew the way. Soon I saw the door again. Round. Low to the ground. Tucked under the roots of a hill. A small curl of smoke rose from the chimney. A light flickered behind the window. I smiled. I knocked once. The door opened at once. Well now, said Mr. Tumnus. I thought I might see you again. He stood there with his scarf wrapped around his neck. His horn shone softly in the light. His eyes were kind. You came back, he said. I did, I said. He stepped aside and waved me in. The room was just as I remembered it. The fire was burning. A kettle hissed gently. The rug was soft. The books still lay in friendly piles across the floor. Sit, he said. Rest. I took the same chair. The one by the fire. He poured tea. This time it smelled of berries and mint. Sweet and cool. He placed a small plate of bread and honey on the table beside me. I hoped you would come back through these woods, he said. They have a way of calling the ones who listen. I sipped the tea. It warmed me from the inside. I saw the lamp again, I said. But not the first one. A different one. He nodded. Ah, he said. Lucy's light. She believed, I said. She did, he replied. And because of that, others could too. We sat in silence for a while. The fire popped softly. Outside, the wind rustled through leaves. The kettle gave a gentle sigh. Do you remember everything? I asked. Not everything, he said. But I remember the things that matter. He stood and walked to the shelf. He took down a small bundle wrapped in cloth. He handed it to me. For your journey, he said. I opened it slowly. Inside was a satchel. Soft wool, the color of earth. Inside that was a small book. The cover was worn. The pages smelled of ink and time. It's full of stories, he said. Old ones. Some true. Some not. But all useful. I turned the pages. Each one held a short tale. A creature. A hill. A whisper in the dark. A lion's shadow. A child's song. There's more than one kind of truth, he said. Sometimes the best way to remember is through a story. I closed the book and held it in my lap. Thank you, I said. He smiled. Also, he said, reaching behind him, this. He placed a folded scarf beside the satchel. It was the same color as his own. In case the snow comes back, he said. I wrapped it around my neck. It was soft. Smelled faintly of cinnamon and smoke. You're kind, I said. I try to be, he said. Kindness is the only real magic we're allowed to keep. The fire was low now. The shadows stretched along the floor. I should go, I said. Yes, he said. The path waits. I stood and slipped the satchel over my shoulder. I held the book in one hand. At the door, I turned. He stood by the hearth. Goodbye for now, I said. Goodbye, he said. And remember, when the path feels lost, listen for the music. I stepped into the twilight. The trees welcomed me again. And I walked on. The forest grew brighter as I walked. The trees thinned. The ground sloped downward. The air changed. It smelled wet and fresh, like stone and sky and running water. I heard it before I saw it. A steady sound. Not loud. Not harsh. A kind of song. Notes rising and falling. Like a voice humming without words. I stepped out from the trees and saw the river. It was wide and smooth. Clear as glass. The light of the sky lay across its surface. Soft and blue. The water moved gently. It flowed around stones and fallen branches. It curved through the land like ribbon through a child's hands. I walked along the bank. The mud was soft. My boots sank lightly into it. Small flowers bloomed along the edge. Yellow and blue. Their petals fluttered in the breeze. The river whispered beside me. The sound grew stronger as I followed its path. Up ahead, a small dock reached into the water. A wooden boat rocked gently beside it. Its shape was round and simple. A curved or rested inside. A lantern hung at the front. It was not lit, but it glowed faintly, like a memory. I stepped onto the dock. The boat moved with the on either side. Their branches leaned overhead. Leaves fell and spun on the surface of the river. Birds called out. Once. Then again. Then silence. Then I heard singing. Not from the trees. From the water. Voices rose all around me. Gentle. Clear. The kind of voices that feel like dreams. They sang without words. But I understood. The song spoke of stars being born. Of moon spinning slow. Of children running through fields. Of lions watching from hills. Of doors that opened. Of paths that waited. Shapes moved in the water. Not fish. Not shadows. Figures. Long and smooth. Their bodies shimmered like silver threads. Their eyes glowed pale and kind. River nymphs. They swam beside the boat. Their hands brushed the surface. Their hair flowed like reeds in wind. They did not speak, but they sang. One rose beside me. Her eyes met mine. She placed her palm on the edge of the boat. Then she smiled. She lifted something from the water. A stone. Smooth. Round. Pale blue. She handed it to me. I took it. It was cool. The boat floated on. She sank beneath the surface. The song continued. The river opened wider. The trees fell away. The sky stretched above like a great soft roof. The clouds moved slow. The sun burned low. The song faded. The boat turned. Ahead, a low hill waited. The bank was smooth and green. The boat drifted to it and stopped. I stepped out. The grass was warm. I turned back. The boat was already leaving. No one guided it. No one turned it. It floated back the way it came. The lantern still glowed. The voices were gone. Only the sound of the river remained. Soft. Sure. I held the stone in my hand and walked toward the hill. The hill rose gently before me. Grass covered it like a blanket. A few wildflowers swayed in the breeze. I walked to the top without hurry. Each step felt soft. My boots pressed into the earth, but did not disturb it. At the crest, I stopped and looked down. A clearing stretched below. Trees circled it like watchful friends. In the center, a long table stood beneath the open sky. It was made of thick wood, low to the ground, covered in cloth and dishes and candles that flickered without flame. The light came from within them. Steady. Soft. Around the table, creatures gathered. A dwarf with a thick red beard poured something warm into a cup. A satyr played with a silver spoon, spinning it on the edge of a bowl. A bird, larger than any I had seen before, folded its wings and dipped its beak into a dish of fruit. A badger leaned back on a stool made of moss. Two dryads whispered as they passed a basket of fresh bread between them. Laughter drifted into the air. Not loud. Not rushed. Just quiet joy. They saw me and waved. "Come," someone said. "You are welcome." I walked down into the light. The smell of food filled the space. Sweet berries. Fresh bread. Cheese. Roasted roots. Something warm and earthy. My stomach stirred. I had not noticed my hunger before. They made space for me at the table. No one asked who I was. No one questioned where I came from. They passed me a bowl of soup. Thick and golden. A slice of warm bread. A cup of something cool that tasted like early morning. "This feast," I asked, "what is it for?" An old owl looked at me and blinked slowly. "For the day," she said. "For the sun. For the path. For being together," added the satyr. "For remembering," said a dryad. "We feast because we can," said the dwarf, grinning. "And because food tastes better outside." I smiled. We ate. The candles glowed brighter. The sky above darkened gently. Stars appeared one by one, like small windows in a velvet curtain. The food changed. New dishes arrived. No one brought them. They simply appeared when they were needed. A bowl of spiced nuts. A pie filled with apples and sugar. Cool milk. Warm cider. The talking never stopped, but it never grew loud. Stories were told. Of the lion who turned winter to spring. Of the children who ruled with grace. Of a horse who ran faster than wind. Of ships that sailed to the edge of the world. Of creatures made of fire. Of forests that walked. Some stories were funny. Some were sad. Some were very old. Some were only half true. But all were told with care. After a while, the owl looked at me. "You carry something," she said. I showed her the small blue stone. She nodded. "A gift from the river," she said. "Keep it close." "Why?" I asked. "It will help you remember," she said. "When you forget who you are." The table grew quiet. The candles dimmed just slightly. The stars burned brighter. Then the satyr stood and played a slow tune on a reed flute. The melody curled through the clearing. It moved like smoke. Like mist over a lake. No one clapped. No one spoke. The music was enough. When it ended, we all sat in silence. The feast was over. But nothing was taken away. It would remain. For the next guest. For the next traveler. I stood and thanked them. They nodded. Some bowed. I turned and walked back through the trees. The sound of the forest rose again. The wind in the leaves. The crack of small branches. The hush of the world holding its breath. The feast had filled more than my stomach. It had filled the quiet places inside me. I walked on. And the path waited. The trees changed as I walked. They grew taller and straighter. Their bark was smooth. Their leaves hung long and narrow. The wind blew warmer here. The air felt dry but rich. The scent of dust and leather and sun-warmed stone drifted around me. I had come into a different part of the forest. Older in feeling. Not colder. Just deeper. As if the stories here spoke in a lower voice. Ahead, a small field opened. It rolled gently between two hills. The grass was gold instead of green. Short and dry. It crackled faintly under my steps. In the center of the field stood a horse. She was tall and still. Her coat was dark, almost black. Her mane fell like silk over her neck. A thin silver bridle lay loosely around her head. Her eyes watched me as I approached. Calm. Strong. Not afraid. She did not move away. You came from the feast, she said. Her voice was clear and low. It came from her mouth, not her mind. There was no surprise in her words. Only certainty. I said. And the river before that. And the tree. And Cair Paravel. I have been waiting, she said. I stepped closer. She turned her head slightly, but did not step back. I could see the muscles along her neck. She was powerful. But her stillness was greater than her strength. I am from Calormen, she said. But I do not belong there. Why not? I asked. Because I chose, she said. I chose the road north. I chose freedom. I chose a new name. I did not ask what her name had been. I was once a slave, she said. I ran through sand. I carried men who never knew my thoughts. Who never heard my voice. Did you escape? I asked. I was set free, she said. By a boy. A boy who became something more. She lifted her head and looked toward the sky. We crossed the desert together, she said. We found water when there was none. We followed stars. We met lions. Lions? I asked. She nodded once. They test you, she said. Before they help you. She lowered her gaze again. He feared he was nothing, she said. But he was brave. He was kind. And in the end, he believed. She stepped closer to me now. Her breath was warm. It smelled like oats and wind. Not all who begin in chains stay bound, she said. Some run. Some leap. Some rise. Do you still carry riders? I asked. Only those who need it, she said. And you do not. She turned and walked a slow circle in the grass. Her hooves made soft clicks. Her tail brushed gently behind her. Your journey is not one of speed, she said. It is one of remembering. I looked down at the blue stone in my hand. It pulsed once with a soft warmth. You are not here by mistake, she said. Narnia remembers everyone who steps through. She paused and looked at me again. When you feel small, she said, remember the roar. What roar? I asked. She turned her head toward the hills. It is not always loud, she said. But it is always near. The wind shifted. It passed through her mane. Through my scarf. Through the long golden grass. She stepped back and bowed her head. Go now, she said. The stone table waits. I bowed in return. She turned and walked toward the far trees. Her body shimmered in the light. Then she was gone. The field stood still. I walked forward. and the world listened. The land began to rise. Slowly at first, then steeper as I climbed. The grass gave way to stone. The wind grew cooler. The trees thinned and fell behind me. The sky stretched wide and pale above. Clouds moved slow. Shadows passed over the rocks. The sound of the world changed. No birds. No rivers. Only the wind. Only my steps. And something deeper. A hum beneath the earth. A memory in stone. I reached a flat hilltop. Broad and bare. Covered in grey rock. In the center stood the table. It was long and narrow. Rough and cracked. Dark marks ran through its surface like veins. Symbols were carved into the edges. Worn. Ancient. Not letters. Not words. More like breath held in shape. The table rested on 2 blocks of stone. One had split down the center. The crack reached from the top to the ground. Clean and deep. I stepped closer. The air around it felt heavy. Not cruel. Just full. Like standing in a place where something holy had happened. My feet slowed. My breath changed. I felt it in my chest. The same feeling I had on the lion's path. But here it was sharper. Closer. Quiet, but near. I placed my hand on the stone. It was cold. And then it wasn't. A warmth moved under the surface. Not fire. Not heat. A kind of light. Like truth. Like knowing. I closed my eyes. And I saw him. The lion. He walked alone into this place. The night was black. The sky held no stars. The ground was hard beneath his paws. The air full of hate and fear. The witch stood near. Her eyes sharp. Her staff cold. Around her, shadows moved. Creatures of stone and dust and spite. And he did not run. He climbed onto the table. He lay down. He gave no fight. The blade came down. And the world held its breath. Then morning. And a sound like thunder. The table cracked. The witch fled. The lion stood again. But not the same. Brighter. Stronger. Deeper. The old magic broke. And something greater began. I opened my eyes. The table stood still. The crack glowed faintly in the light. I stepped back. The wind moved across the hill. A single tree stood at the edge. Its branches were bare. But its trunk was strong. I sat beneath it. The bark was smooth. I rested the satchel at my side. The stone in my hand was warm. I looked up at the sky. The clouds moved slow. The light was pale gold. And I thought of him. Not just the lion who roared, but the one who waited. The one who gave. The one who returned. I sat there for a long time. And the table echoed on. The wind shifted while I sat beneath the tree. It moved differently now. It was slower. Heavier. Not cold. Not warm. It carried something I could not name. Like a voice in the distance. Not calling. Just being. The light on the stone table softened. The sky above began to change. The gold deepened. The clouds turned pink at the edges. The day was ending. I stood. I looked once more at the table. At the crack that ran through it. At the symbols carved into its sides. They no longer felt silent. They felt alive. Like breath under skin. I touched the stone one last time. Then I turned. A narrow path led away from the hill. It curled between rocks and patches of grass. The trees were gone now. Only wide land stretched around me. And mountains far off. Their peaks touched the clouds. Their sides glowed in the fading light. The wind moved toward them. And so did I. The path climbed slowly. Each step felt quiet, like moving deeper into thought. The grass grew shorter. The stones sharper. The sky darker. The air grew still. I felt the quiet settle around me. Not empty quiet. Full quiet. The kind that waits for something to happen. Then I heard him. Not in front of me. Not behind. Inside. A whisper. Not made of sound. Just presence. It moved through me like wind through leaves. It said nothing. And everything. I stopped walking. I closed my eyes. And I listened. There was no roar. No voice. Only this steady, strong hush. Like the moment before the world begins. Like the moment before a heart speaks. I saw no shape. But I felt the lion. He was near. Not in flesh. In truth. The stone in my hand grew warm. My breath slowed. My chest rose and fell with the rhythm of something greater than air. He was not close. And yet closer than anything. He had always been there. I did not reach for him. I did not call. He was already listening. Already watching. Already waiting. I opened my eyes. The mountain stood ahead. Still and gold. The path led upward. I walked again. One step. Then another. The whisper remained. Soft. Sure. More than a sound. A promise. The path curved through the mountains and carried me east. The sky ahead was brighter, though the sun had not yet risen. A strange light shimmered over the horizon. Pale. Soft. Not from the sky. From the sea. I could smell it again. The salt. The open air. The edge of the world. I walked until the stone beneath my feet turned smooth. It sloped down. I followed. Slowly. Quietly. The mountains fell behind me. The wind returned. Gentle and wide. It moved through my coat. Through my scarf. Through my thoughts. Then I saw it. The sea. But not like before. This sea did not roar. It glowed. It stretched out farther than sight. It shimmered gold and silver. As if it remembered every star that had ever touched its surface. The waves were low and slow. No shore broke them. No rock stopped them. Only a stillness so deep it felt holy. And resting at the edge of the water, half in the sand, half in the sea, was a ship. The Dawn Treader. Her sails were furled. Her hull was curved like a dragon. Her bow reached up like a bird in flight. She did not move. She did not need to. The water around her held her like a cradle. I stepped closer. The sand was white. Soft. Cool beneath my boots. I walked to her side and placed my hand on the wood. It was smooth. Warm from sun and time. I closed my eyes. And I saw them. The boy with the sword. The girl with the bow. The cousin who became brave. The mouse with the golden armor. They had sailed this ship. They had faced storms and darkness and islands that whispered. They had chased stars. And they had found the end of the world. And still wanted to go farther. I opened my eyes. The ship was still there. She did not fade. She did not vanish. She waited. But not for me. Not now. I sat beside her. The sea whispered. It touched the shore like breath. I looked into the water. And I saw sky. Clouds. Light. And the shape of something golden far below. Like a lion walking just beneath the waves. Not seen. But present. The wind wrapped around me. I held the stone in my palm. The satchel at my side. The ship beside me. The sea ahead. I did not need to sail. Not today. It was enough to sit. To listen. To remember. To feel what it means to be near the edge. Not of danger. But of wonder. The sun began to rise. The sea turned to gold. And the world waited with me. The sun rose slow and wide over the sea. Its light touched every wave. The water turned gold, then silver, then gold again. The sky above stayed quiet. No birds flew. No clouds moved. It was the kind of morning that asked for stillness. The kind that did not need words. I sat beside the ship and watched the sea breathe. The dawn tread a rock gently. Not with wind. Not with current. As if it remembered the hands that once held her ropes. The feet that once ran across her deck. The voices that once called through her sails. She remembered the journey. She remembered all of it. I touched the hull once more. Warmth met my palm. Not heat. Something deeper. A kindness in the wood. A weight in the shape. Then I heard it. A soft thump on the sand. A quick step. Not heavy. Not slow. Precise. I turned. He was small, but he stood tall. He wore armor that caught the sun. His sword hung at his side. A feather curled from the top of his helmet. He held his head high. And he smiled. "Ah," he said. "So we meet at the edge." I rose to my feet. "You'll reap it cheap," I said. He bowed low. "I am," he said. "Knight of the Order of the Lion. Sailor of the Eastern Sea. Seeker of the utter East." His voice was proud, but not proud in the wrong way. He was full of purpose. Full of story. He stepped closer and looked out at the sea. "She's beautiful, isn't she?" he said. "Yes," I said. "And she goes on forever," he said. He placed a paw over the hilt of his sword. "I once believed," he said, "that a mouse must stay where mice belong. In the shadows. In the corners. Behind the feet of braver creatures." He turned to me. "But then I learned," he said, "that bravery has nothing to do with size." He walked along the edge of the sand. His paws left small, neat prints. "I have faced giants," he said. "I have climbed mountains. I have crossed deserts. I have been swallowed by darkness. And yet the hardest journey was this one." "What journey?" I asked. He stopped. "The journey into peace," he said. He sat down in the sand. Crossed his legs. Rested his paws in his lap. "I longed for the end of the world," he said. "For the land where stars are born. Where the water becomes sky. Where the lion walks in full light." He looked toward the sun. "And one day, I reached it," he said. "Did you find him?" I asked. "I did," he said. "But not with my eyes." He closed his eyes now. Took a slow breath. "He was already there," he said. "Inside me. Beside me. Before me." He stood again. And now, he said, I return. Not to stay. Just to speak. Just to remind. He looked up at me. The world forgets, he said. Even in Narnia. The world forgets the small ones. The quiet ones. The ones who walk forward when no one sees. But you are remembered, I said. He smiled. Only because I kept walking, he said. He drew his sword. Held it straight. Then lowered it slowly. The blade is not for battle now, he said. It is for memory. For honor. For hope. He stepped toward the boat. She waits for no one, he said. But she welcomes all. I looked at the ship. The waves touched her sides. Light moved over her sails. She will go again, he said. But this time, without me. You're not sailing? I asked. He shook his head. My journey is complete, he said. But yours is not. He handed me something. A tiny wooden carving. A lion's head. Rough. Worn smooth at the edges. It will remind you, he said, of what it means to be small. And strong. He turned from the sea and looked inland. There is more ahead, he said. Paths that rise. Sure. Fields that slope downward into a valley of trees. These trees were not like the others. They were tall and straight, with no branches low enough to touch. Their trunks were dark and smooth. Their leaves hung still, even as the wind passed through. The sound here was different. Not the usual rustle or chatter. No bird sang. No insects hummed. The silence pressed gently around me, like a room with no door. I entered the woods without question. My feet moved carefully over the soft earth. My breath slowed to match the rhythm of the quiet. This was Telmar. I did not know how I knew. But I did. The woods told me, not with words, but with stillness. Every step I took felt noticed, not by eyes, but by the place itself. It did not judge. It did not welcome. It simply watched. I passed trees that leaned ever so slightly toward one another, as if whispering secrets. Stones lay scattered along the ground, shaped like forgotten altars. Roots wove through the soil in patterns I could not explain. Long ago, this place had held people. Not just creatures of Narnia, but humans. Children of Earth. They had ruled here. Built here. Fought here. And then faded. I reached a clearing deep in the woods. In its center stood the remains of a stone arch. It had once been part of something larger, a gate perhaps, or a hall. But now it stood alone. Moss covered its lower stones. A vine with red flowers curled around the top. I stepped under it and looked around. The clearing held a stillness deeper than the rest of the forest. The air here was thick with echoes. I sat on a fallen log. Its bark was cracked and dry. I ran my fingers along the grooves. The log had once been strong. Part of a tree that had grown straight and proud. Now it rested. Like everything else in this place. I closed my eyes. I saw a prince. Dark hair. A sword at his side. A crown he did not want. Caspian. He had come to these woods not for power, but for truth. He had searched the ruins. Listened to the stones. Spoke to the trees. And the lion had heard him. He had brought change. He had brought peace. But only for a time. Because peace in Narnia never stays unless it is chosen again and again. I opened my eyes. The trees had not moved. But something had shifted. A shape stood across the clearing. A woman. Tall. Silent. Her eyes were dark and kind. She did not speak. She simply held out her hand. And in it was a small item. A ring. Simple. Bronze. Worn. I stood and stepped toward her. She placed the ring in my palm. When our hands touched, I felt warmth. The kind that comes not from fire, but from memory. I looked into her eyes and saw 1,000 years. Battles. Crowns. Stars. Storms. Children laughing. Doors opening. Doors closing. I whispered, "Who were they?" She whispered back, "Yours." Then she stepped back and was gone. Only the ring remained. I slipped it onto my finger. It fit perfectly. Not too loose. Not too tight. It felt like it had always been there. The woods watched. Not coldly. Just quietly. The silence did not feel empty anymore. It felt full. Held. Kept. I left the clearing. I did not look back. The path through Telmar had changed me. Not loudly. Not suddenly. But like stone worn smooth by time. Soft. Slow. Lasting. The woods of Telmar faded behind me, and the land opened again. Rolling hills stretched under a pale sky. The grass here was shorter. Touched with silver. As if frost had passed through but decided not to stay. The wind returned, brushing softly across my face and shoulders. It smelled like stone and rain. Like something forgotten. Something waiting. The hills were quiet. But not silent. They hummed. A low sound, just under the surface of hearing. Not a song. Not a voice. A presence. I followed it. One hill rose higher than the others. Not tall, but full. It drew my eyes the way a fire draws hands on a cold night. I walked toward it slowly. The ground turned hard beneath my feet. My boots clicked softly over smooth earth. At the base of the hill was a dark opening. A doorway. Low. Round. Not carved. Not built. Just there. Like the hill had opened its mouth. I paused. The air inside the hollow smelled cool and deep. I stepped in. The walls closed around me. The light dimmed. The sound of the wind disappeared. Only the hum remained. It grew stronger as I walked. The tunnel curved downward. The air was dry. Each breath felt older than the last. Then the passage opened. I stood in a wide cavern beneath the hill. The walls curved like the inside of a bell. The floor was flat, made of stone so smooth it looked like glass. Shapes moved in the corners. Figures. Bent and slow. Their eyes glowed faintly in the dark. Not with fear. With wonder. Earthmen. They did not speak. But they noticed me. One nodded as he passed. Another sat on a stone ledge, holding a small lantern. Its light flickered gold and blue. They moved like people who had forgotten how to rush. There was no urgency here. No noise. Only motion. Only purpose. I walked among them. Their skin was pale, almost the color of ash. Their hands strong. Their steps sure. They were not sad. Not angry. Just quiet. Like people waking from a long sleep. In the center of the cavern stood a pool. Its surface was still. Dark. I stepped to the edge and looked down. Not into water. Into light. It moved beneath the surface like smoke. Shifting colors. Blue. Green. white. I saw shadows drift across it. Shapes from the past. A girl with a crown. A boy with a horn. A great lion walking through snow. And the Earthmen. Bent low in darkness. Then rising. Their eyes lifted. Their hands free. The pool shimmered. And the vision faded. I turned. One Earthman approached. He held something in his hands. A stone. Shaped like a tear. He placed it in mine. It fell when the spell broke, he said. His voice was rough, but kind. It is not sorrow, he added. It is freedom, hardened into form. I nodded. He smiled. Then returned to the shadows. The stone pulsed once in my hand. Warm. Real. I placed it beside the river stone and the wooden lion in my satchel. 3 gifts now. All different. All from those who remembered. I walked back through the tunnel. The hill above held still. The Earthmen stayed in the dark. But not in silence. They had found something deeper. A peace that came after pain. A light that grew in the quiet. I stepped out into the wind again. The sky was darker now. Evening had come. Stars began to rise. And the hill behind me did not close its mouth. It waited. For someone else. The stars blinked gently in the sky above me as I walked. The hill behind me faded into shadow. The path ahead curved through open land, quiet and bare. The wind moved steadily now. It brushed against my arms, slipped past my collar, and tugged lightly at the satchel over my shoulder. It was not sharp. It was not cruel. But it carried a change in it. A shift. Like something old was being carried away. Like something new was just behind the air. I felt the chill first. A familiar cold. Not deep winter, but the memory of it. The sky above stayed clear, but the ground changed. Frost began to creep across the grass. It sparkled under the light of the stars. Thin sheets of ice formed across small puddles. The air tasted different, cleaner, sharper, filled with something crisp. I pulled the scarf tighter around my neck. And I kept walking. The landscape was quiet. But not dead. It waited. Not in fear. But in wonder. Snow began to fall. Not heavy. Just a soft drift. One flake. Then another. Each one silent. Each one perfect. They fell on my shoulders, my hands, my hair. They melted slowly. The snow did not cover the ground. It only touched it. Like a whisper saying goodbye. And I knew what it was. The last snow. The end of winter. The final breath of the old cold. I walked through it slowly. As if not to wake anything still sleeping beneath. The trees returned. Thin at first. Then taller. Their branches were bare, but not dry. They were waiting. Full of buds. Full of green, curled and hidden in tight fists. They were not mourning winter. They were preparing. The wind changed again. And I smelled something sweet. The first scent of spring. New grass. Fresh earth. A flower beginning to open. I saw a patch of crocus pushing through the snow. Then 2. Then many. Purple, white, yellow. Little bursts of color like laughter rising from the ground. I stopped and knelt beside them. Their petals were soft. Their stems strong. They did not care what had come before. They had work to do. I stood and walked on. The trees thickened. The ground turned soft with new growth. Tiny green blades peeked up through frost. Birds began to call. One note. Then two. Then a song. A real one. The first of the season. Not perfect, but hopeful. I reached a stream that had thawed. The water moved fast and clear. Not a whisper, but a song. It splashed over stone. It glittered in the starlight. I knelt beside it and touched the surface. It was cold, but not bitter, not biting. It was alive. I cupped some in my hand and drank. It tasted like sky, like beginning, like breath. And I knew the long winter had ended. Not just in the land, but inside me, too. The quiet weight I had carried. The stillness of the snow. The silence of frozen trees. It had all lifted. Not disappeared. Just passed on. As it must. As it always will. Because in Narnia, winter ends. And when it does, the world remembers how to breathe again. The path curved through a field lit by the soft light of dawn. The snow was gone now. The grass shimmered with dew. Flowers had opened, quietly and without fuss. Their colors were gentle, pale blue, soft white, dusty pink. The world looked washed clean, as if it had just remembered how to be alive. The air was warm again. But not the warmth of summer. It was the warmth of welcome. I followed the path up a low rise. The trees behind me swayed slowly. Birds called through the branches. Every sound felt gentle. Every shape felt known. At the top of the hill, I stopped. For thrones stood in a circle of stone. They were not grand. Not tall or towering. They were simple. Strong. Each one carved from a different kind of wood. One was smooth and wide, with carvings of shields and lions along its arms. One was slender, its back curved like a bow, its legs carved like vines. One was square, sturdy, with stars carved in neat rows across the seat. And one was smaller than the rest, but no less proud, with soft, round edges and a horn carved into the top rail. The wind moved through the stone circle. I stepped closer. And I saw them. Not clearly. Not like people. More like memory. More like light. For figures stood near the thrones. A boy with dark hair and a sword at his side. A girl with a bow over her shoulder, her face calm and sharp. Another boy with a crown in one hand and a book in the other. And a girl, young, bright, her eyes wide and full of trust. The four children. Kings and queens of Narnia. Peter. Susan. Edmund. Lucy. They did not speak. They did not move. They simply stood and watched me. Not as strangers. Not as rulers. As if they knew me. As if they had always been waiting. I stepped forward slowly. I bowed my head. Not because I had to. Because it felt right. When I looked up, they were gone. But the thrones remained. And something more. For cloaks now hung over the backs of the chairs. Blue. Green. Gold. Red. They moved gently in the breeze. I reached out and touched one. The cloth was soft. It felt like the sky. Like night and wind and story. I closed my eyes. And I saw moments. Not great battles. Not distant kingdoms. Small things. Lucy laughing under falling petals. Peter running barefoot through the grass. Edmund helping a badger lift a heavy pack. Susan singing to the trees. They had lived here. Not just ruled. Lived. Loved. Believed. They had walked the same paths. Heard the same birds. sat by the same fires. And then, one day, they had left. But not all of them at once. Some returned. Some did not. Some forgot. Some remembered. But Narnia had kept all of them. Here, in the wind. In the stones. In the thrones waiting in silence. I turned to go. And as I did, I heard something behind me. A laugh. Light. Quick. Full of joy. I turned back. Nothing there. Only the breeze. Only the sun rising. Only four cloaks waving softly in the light. I walked down from the circle of thrones with the wind at my back. The sky had turned clear and gold. The sun was high now, but soft. It did not burn. It warmed. It lit the world without asking for attention. Birds flew across the open sky in slow, drifting shapes. Their wings cut the air in silence. The grass swayed low. Each step felt lighter than the last. Not because I was less tired, but because something inside me had grown still. The path flattened. The hills fell away. And then I saw it. A door. Standing in the middle of the field. No wall. No building. Just the door. It was wooden, tall, and plain. No handle. No hinges. No sign of what lay beyond. The grass grew all around it. The light fell against it like it belonged. There was no wind here. No sound. Just the door and the breath I held without meaning to. I stepped closer. Every step felt slower. Not heavy. Reverent. The way you walk when you know something is about to end. Or begin. I stood before it. The wood was smooth and light. It did not glow. It did not shimmer. It simply was. And I knew what it meant. The way some dreams end not with waking, but with the invitation to leave. I touched the door. And it opened. Not with a sound. Not with movement. Just suddenly, the space was no longer closed. I did not step through. Not yet. I looked. And I saw a field. Not this field. Another one. Wider. Greener. The sky beyond was bluer than anything I had ever known. The trees were taller. The flowers brighter. And the light, brighter, yes, but also deeper. Full of story. Full of joy. There was laughter on the wind. Not mine. Not voices I knew. But I wanted to know them. I wanted to run across that field. To feel that sky. To rest beneath those trees. To walk in that light and never be lost again. But something held me still. Not fear. Not sadness. A kind of knowing. That the journey here was not over. Not yet. I stepped back. Just a little. The door remained open. But I did not go through. Not today. I turned and looked behind me. And I saw Narnia. Not just the trees and hills and rivers. But the pieces of it I had carried. The lamp in the orchard. The scarf around my neck. The wooden lion in my pocket. The stone from the river. The tear from the hollow hill. The ring from the ruins of Telmar. I still had all of them. And they still had me. I looked at the door once more. The light beyond it waited. But not impatiently. It would be there. Whenever I was ready. I reached out and closed it. The latch clicked softly. It did not vanish. It stayed. Standing tall in the field. A promise. Not an ending. Just another beginning. And behind me, the wind picked up again. Carrying the scent of trees. of firelight, of snow melting in spring. I turned, and I walked back into the world that had always known me. Night came without fear. It settled slowly, like a blanket pulled up by a loving hand. The sky turned from gold to grey, then to deep blue, then to black so soft it felt warm. The stars appeared one by one, then all at once. They filled the sky, not scattered or wild, but arranged like music. They did not blink. They burned steady. Each one held its place with purpose. I lay in a field wide and still. The grass around me barely moved. The wind had quieted. The world breathed in silence. I looked up. The stars did not just shine. They sang. Not with voices. Not with words. With light. With memory. With presence. Their song came into me like breath. Like warmth through cold hands. It hummed beneath my ribs. It slowed my heartbeat. It filled the spaces where fear had once been. It did not ask me to understand. Only to listen. And I did. I listened to the stars tell stories. Some I had already heard. Of the lion's roar, deep enough to form mountains. Of the children who ruled in peace and returned in courage. Of the ship that touched the edge of the world. Of the snow that melted because love had walked into its center. But some stories were new. Stories of gentle things. Of a squirrel that planted one last acorn and never saw the tree it would become. Of a centaur who taught the stars to dance. Of a silent stag that watched over the forest through 1,000 winters. And of a door that opened only for those who had truly listened. Each star held a name. Not grand names. Just true ones. Soft ones. Names that felt like home. As I lay beneath their song, I thought of my own name. Not what others called me, but the quiet name inside. The one the lion must have known before I did. And I wondered if one of the stars knew it too. If it sang for me. If it had always been singing. Waiting for the moment I would lie here. Look up. And hear. I closed my eyes. The song did not stop. It moved around me. Through me. It joined the beat of my breath. The weight of my limbs. The stillness of my hands. The lion had once sung the stars into being. But now the stars were singing him back into every corner of the world. And into me. I did not need to see him. I felt him in the melody. In the light. In the silence that followed every note. And I knew, without question, that Narnia would never truly end. Not for those who listened. Not for those who remembered. Not for those who believed. Even in sleep. Especially in sleep. The stars went on singing. And I, at last, let myself rest. Morning came gently, though I did not open my eyes. The light was there. I felt it on my face, soft and golden. Not sharp. Not bright. It was the kind of light that only comes when the world is whole. The kind that touches without waking. It waited. I listened. The stars had gone quiet. But their song still echoed. It lived in the hush of the trees. In the breath of the wind. In the space between heartbeats. I opened my eyes. And the sky above was clear. Not empty. Just full of peace. I sat up slowly. The grass was warm beneath me. The world around me looked the same, but I was not. Something inside had shifted. Not loudly. Not quickly. But truly. I stood. I low. River. The tear-shaped stone from the hill. The ring of Telmar. I carried them with me. Not as souvenirs. As reminders. Proof. That I had been here. That I had listened. That I had not imagined it. And even if no one else would understand, it did not matter. Because I understood. And that was enough. I crossed a field with trees ahead. The path curved again. And I followed. Not quickly. Not slowly. But with peace. Because I knew something now. Something I would always know. Narnia is not gone. It never was. It never will be. Not while there is wonder. Not while there is courage. Not while there is someone who still believes. And I believe. If your eyes are still closed, stay there a while longer. Let the quiet settle. Let the story rest in you, the way stars rest in the sky, silent, bright, and unhurried. You have walked far. Through snow and sunlight. Through memory and myth. Through stories too big to be told out loud. You have met the gentle and the brave. You have heard songs carried by wind, by rivers, by stars. You have stood at the foot of a stone table, and by the side of a lion who never had to roar to be heard. And whether you remember every moment or only pieces wrapped in dream, that is enough. Because Narnia was not just a place you visited. It is something that found you. The stillness you felt in the trees. The warmth in the firelight. The pull of a quiet path. That stays with you now. Even as your breath deepens. Even as your body softens into sleep. Or into waking. Wherever you are now, carry this one truth with you. The door does not close behind you. It stays. Not in a wardrobe. Not in a field. But in the heart that listens. In the mind that dares to wonder. In the soul that still says yes to magic. And so, dear traveler, if you wake, do so gently. And if you sleep, sleep deeply. For Narnia is not gone. And neither is the part of you that remembers it.